Raducanu slams Australian Open late-night women's scheduling. We have to accept it. Before contesting her fifth career Australian Open, Emma Raducanu appeared at a press conference on Saturday, scheduled for late tomorrow evening against Mananchaya Sawankayu. The Briton addressed the match scheduling, criticizing the organizers' decision to start some women's matches in the final night slot. We have to accept playing very late. For me, it makes no sense to schedule women's matches late after a men's match. But once the schedule is out, we have to accept playing very late, which means adapting, reorganizing the day, and adjusting the routine. Late nights and loud voices, Emma Raducanu and the scheduling debate at the Australian Open. The Australian Open, the first Grand Slam of each tennis season, is famous for its high-octane action, sweltering heat, dramatic upsets, and often, its late-night matches. But at the 2026 edition of the tournament in Melbourne, a fresh spark of controversy ignited, not because of a stunning upset or dramatic five-set thriller, but because of when matches were scheduled to be played. And at the center of that debate recently stood Emma Raducanu, the British star whose bold comments have reignited discussions on fairness, player well-being, and gender equity in professional tennis scheduling. Arrival, preparation, and a tall order. Raducanu, now a seasoned professional with past Grand Slam success on her resume, faced a uniquely challenging start to her 2026 Australian Open campaign. After a less-than-ideal build-up, including a quarter-final loss at the warm-up Hobart International and a foot injury that limited her preseason practice, she only arrived in Melbourne shortly before her first-round match was to be played. Rather than being given a daytime slot that would allow her to get accustomed to the conditions and atmosphere of Melbourne Park, Raducanu was instead placed in the second night session on Margaret Court Arena. This meant her match would follow a potentially long men's five-set contest scheduled to start at 7 p.m. local time, a decision that could push her own start time deep into the night. Her reaction was direct. It's very difficult. It doesn't really make much sense. The issue, she explained, wasn't merely the lateness of the hour, but the broader decision to schedule women's matches after potentially extended men's matches, a pattern that many players feel disproportionately burdens female competitors. Why the scheduling matters. At first glance, scheduling may seem like a mundane administrative task, but in a sport like tennis, timing is everything. Consider the physiological and psychological aspects. Circadian rhythms and peak performance. Most athletes train and perform their best earlier in the day. Matches that start near or after midnight can disrupt sleep patterns and recovery cycles, especially when compounded over a 2-week Grand Slam. Practice disruption. Raducanu testified that she planned her first practice in Melbourne at 9 p.m. the night before her match. Hardly ideal preparation, all because of the compressed lead-up to her opener. Mental focus and routine, rituals, routines, and predictability help elite athletes manage stress and maintain performance. When those routines are interrupted by unpredictable late starts, it adds a layer of complexity and fatigue. Fair competition, when men's matches, potentially lasting 5 sets and several hours, are scheduled first, women's matches risk being pushed later, increasing the physical and psychological challenge even before a ball is struck. The result isn't just a late night. It's an unlevel playing field when it comes to conditions under which players are expected to compete. A pattern, not an isolated incident. Raducanu's critique did not emerge in a vacuum. Tournament scheduling at Melbourne Park has drawn criticism before. Matches have ended at absurd hours, like fixtures stretching into the early morning, much to the frustration of players and fans alike. Some argue that broadcast contracts and television ratings drive the prioritization of marquee matches in prime time, pushing less profitable contests into less desirable hours. For players who must follow those marquee matches, often without clarity on exact start times until very late in the evening, the inconsistency can wreak havoc on preparation. Raducanu's response, poised, pragmatic, and balanced. What stood out most about Raducanu's comments was her tone. She did not rant, refuse to play, or break down in front of cameras. Rather, she expressed frustration with clarity, insight, and a sense of acceptance that some things are currently beyond her control. Her statement that once the schedule is out, we have to accept it, which means adapting and reorganizing the day, and adjusting the routine reflected both realism and resilience. Her approach was sophisticated. She didn't dismiss the value of the event or challenge its authority outright. Instead, she acknowledged the constraints, pointed out their effects, and gently nudged at the conversation about how things could be improved. There's an artistry in that balance, to say this could be better without alienating stakeholders or distracting from her competitive focus. It's a skill few athletes master publicly. The bigger picture, a growing conversation in sport. Raducanu's remarks, and the ensuing coverage, reflect a larger conversation in tennis and sport as a whole about how scheduling, revenue, viewership, and equality intersect. Many argue that women's matches shouldn't automatically be placed after men's matches, especially when that risks late-night play. Some suggest alternating prime slots, or devising systems where player rest and recovery take precedence over broadcast convenience. Others emphasize that fans around the world, from Europe to Asia, tune in at specific times, pushing tournaments to structure schedules accordingly. This tension between player welfare and commercial pressures isn't unique to tennis. It's a broader theme in modern sport, where athletes are warriors on the court but also public figures navigating global audiences, media obligations, and the increasing demands of sponsorship and entertainment. Raducanu's remarks resonate precisely because they touch both the personal, her preparation and routine, and the structural, tournament priorities. Raducanu's season so far. Context for the comment. It's worth noting that the scheduling issue isn't Raducanu's only talking point entering the Australian Open. In addition to her recent form, which included a stop at the Hobart International with a disrupted match due to rain, she has faced physical setbacks and a limited preseason due to a lingering foot injury. That context matters. When an athlete arrives at a Grand Slam already behind schedule, physically and mentally, any